Here with Sebastian Suave. Sebastian, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, thank you.
Now, give a brief rundown. How long have you been wrestling? Where you primarily wrestle out of?
I've been wrestling roughly 10 years, maybe getting closer to 11, and primarily wrestling out of Ontario and a bit in the Quebec and New York scene as well.
Okay. And, this is about video games, so what have you been playing lately?
Lately, it slowed down a bit with having a kid, but just got a Switch, so we started with Super Mario, obviously. That Odyssey's been on point. It's been something to play every day. Been playing a lot of games on my phone with apps. Really got into the Crazy Taxi game, so it's a little different from the old school one on the Dreamcast, but anything that's a little bit of a retro feel is always fun. But yeah, I used to always be into a lot of the fighters like Street Fighter and Rival School, so like I'm trying to pick up some games like that lately.
Have you had a chance to try out like the Injustice game or the new Dragon Ball Z fighter game? Because it seems like the fighting games are having a big resurgence, especially with like Tekken 7 coming back and Street Fighter 5 on an upswing as well. Have you had a chance to try those?
Not yet, but like I was also a big fan of Tekken, so I do have my eye on that. So like yeah, I mean fighters have always been. I think a lot of people have enjoyed a lot of free play games in past years, but I think when when I was a little younger, the arcade era was still strong. Even if there was copied games around, there was nothing like if you were really into your video games, you'd still spend money at the arcade because that's where all the best players were, and like that's where games were the most competitive when it came to fighter games. So if you were in the arcade era, that's where it picked up, and I'm thinking, I don't know why it's picking up a resurgence, but I'm hoping a lot of people get together, or you know what, just there's more accessibility to using online to compete with other people, so maybe that's what it is.
And with the upcoming Smash Wrestling show at the end of March, it's the big theme of it is for the poster and the advertising is Super Meat Boy. Is that a game that you personally enjoyed?
I do enjoy it, but our graphic designer had a bit of an input on that, and Alan, and there's another friend of his, Colin. He's a good friend of ours, and he actually helped design the characters. So for a couple of you can kind of eventually pick up which roster members or which fans are fans of the video game, because they pick up what the characters are at rather than being random characters. So I think anytime we can do a little subtle, homages, people do enjoy that.
That's a big thing nowadays where like with wrestling and video games, they were kind of like outside interests where like growing up, if you enjoyed them, you were kind of, not shunned upon, but you're like looked down on. But now the cool things are both of them.
I mean, me and Psycho Mike Rollins always talk about this. Like back in the day, like nowadays people are always like, I'm a nerd, I'm totally a nerd. And it's like a bragging point. It's like when we were younger, you don't say that. That was a derogatory term. Like people look down on you. Like you wouldn't bring your games to school. You'd if you had trading cards, you'd have them in private, but it's something you did at home. But now I think gaming has got so creative with what the concepts of the game are, and just with a lot of the gameplay. So I think it's definitely reaching a larger target market than just if you want to say quote unquote nerds, or the fan bases that go to the Comic Cons. There's people who enjoy video games. They may not go, and they may not go to the Comic Cons and dress up and invest their money in the conferences and all that, but they still enjoy games. So I think it's expanded their reach, and there's an audience out there that doesn't need to be diehard fans, and I think that's helped people open up to video games being more cool than being a nerd thing.
And we'll wrap it up. So if anyone wants to check out any of your wrestling or on social media, where can they do that?
Suave Wrestling on both Twitter and Instagram. Sebastian Suave on Facebook. You can always catch me on great promotions like Smash Wrestling and Barry Wrestling and FLQ and ESW and a lot more.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.